Hello, my name is Daniel Davis, and today I will be giving you a presentation over the legal rights for special education. To get started, I will go over a brief outline of my entire presentation. I'll call it the introduction. I'll start off by defining special education. I'll use the book's definition and my own short definition. I will then go over the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act, which in short is IDEA. I will then discuss the rights of students, parents and families, and teachers. I will then move on to discuss the education laws and responsibilities. I will also show how this knowledge will impact my classroom in the future. Then I will move on to the teacher liabilities in the classroom regarding the students. This will cover pre-referrals, referrals, and assessments. Finally, I will move on to my philosophy on education. To get started, I'll go over the book's definition and my definition of special education. The book's definition states, specifically designed instruction to meet the unique needs of an individual recognized as exceptional. I do wholeheartedly agree with this definition, but special education to me is just any student that requires a form of outside help in the classroom. This isn't a bad thing. It can be a great thing for many students. Now I'm going to move on to what is IDEA. Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act, which is also IDEA, is viewed as a Bill of Rights for children with exceptionalities and their families. It is the culmination of many years of dedicated effort by both parents and professionals. Like many other special educators, we consider this law to be one of the most important pieces, if not the most important piece, of federal legislation ever enacted on behalf of children with special needs. Public Law 94 through 142 may rightfully be thought of as the legislative heart of special education. Its purpose is to assure that all handicapped children have available to them a free, appropriate public education which emphasizes special education and related services designed to meet their unique needs, to assure that the rights of the handicapped children and their parents or guardians are protected, to assist states and localities to provide for the education of all handicapped children, and to assess and assure the effectiveness of efforts to educate handicapped children. This is found in Section 601C. As shown on the previous slide, there are certain principles of the main IDEA, 6 to be exact. The 6 principles of IDEA are a free, appropriate public education, the least restrictive environment, an individualized education program, procedural due process, non-discriminatory assessment, and parental participation. The first of the 6 principles of IDEA is a free, appropriate public education, denoted FAPE. This states that all children, regardless of the severity of their disability, aka a zero reject philosophy, must be provided with an education appropriate to their unique needs at no cost to the parents or guardians. Included in this principle is the concept of related services, which requires that children receive, for example, occupational therapy as well as other services as necessary in order to benefit from specific special educations. The second of the 6 principles of IDEA is the least restrictive environment, denoted LRE. This states that children with disabilities are to be educated to the maximum extent appropriate with students without disabilities. Placements must be consistent with the pupil's needs. The third of the 6 principles of IDEA is an individualized education program, denoted IEP. These are very important in the special education field. This document, developed in conjunction with the parents and/or guardians, is an individually tailored statement describing an educational plan for each learner with exceptionalities. The IEP addresses the present level of academic functionality, annual goals and accompanying instructional objectives, educational services to be provided, the degree to which the pupil will be able to participate in general education programs, plans for initiating services and length of the service deliver, and an annual evaluation procedure specifying objective criteria to determine if instructional objectives are being met. The fourth of the 6 principles of IDEA is procedural due process. The Act affords parents and/or guardians several safeguards as it pertains to their child's education. Briefly, they have the right to confidentiality of records, to examine all records, to obtain an independent evaluation, to receive written notification of proposed changes to their child's educational classification or placement, and to an impartial hearing whenever disagreements arise regarding educational plans for their son and/or daughter. The fifth part of the 6 principles of IDEA is non-discriminatory assessment. This states that prior to placement, a child must be evaluated by a multidisciplinary team in all areas of suspected disability by tests that are not racially, culturally, or linguistically biased. Students are to receive several types of assessment administered by trained personnel. A single evaluation procedure is not permitted for either planning or placement purposes. The sixth and final principle of IDEA is parental participation. This, along with Public Law 94 through 142, mandates meaningful parental involvement, sometimes referred to as the Parents' Law. This legislation requires that parents participate fully in the decision-making process that affects their child's education. Next, I will be moving on to briefly describe and discuss the rights of students and parents and families. First, every student has the right to receive an education to highest standards. This means that they are no different from every other student within the institution. Also, schools must be prepared to make appropriate accommodations and reasonable modifications so students with disabilities can participate. This shows that no student can be discriminated against because of disabilities. We will discuss this later in the No Child Left Behind Act of 2002. Also, no students with disabilities can be excluded from participating and cannot be discriminated against. Parents have the right of confidentiality with the students. They also have the right of evaluation of school records, and they can inspect their child's school records. Moving on, I'm going to briefly discuss the rights of the teachers. As a teacher, we are able to communicate with parents while maintaining confidentiality. This is a right of both teachers and parents/and/or guardians within the school system. We are allowed to request special materials to accommodate to the special needs students. Also, we are allowed to alter our lesson plans to accommodate to the needs of the students regardless of their disabilities. Next, I'm going to briefly discuss and explain the educational laws and responsibilities of the teachers within the classroom. three of the educational laws that I'm going to focus on are the IDEA 2004, the No Child Left Behind Act of 2002, and Section 504. We've already gone over the IDEA 2004, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act of 2004. Next, I'm going to show the No Child Left Behind Act of 2002's main reasons. It authorizes several federal education programs that are administered by the states. Its major focus is to close students' achievement gaps by providing all children with a fair, equal, and significant opportunity to obtain a high-quality education. It is based off of four pillars: accountability to ensure those students who are disadvantaged achieve academic proficiency; flexibility, which allows districts flexibility in how they use federal education funds to improve student achievement; research-based education, which is to emphasize educational programs and practices that have been proven effective through scientific research; and finally, parent options, to increase the choices available to the parents of students attending Title I schools. With regards to Section 504, it is an anti-discrimination civil rights statute that requires the needs of students with disabilities to be met as adequately as the needs of the non-disabled are met. Ultimately, this means that all students are treated fairly and equally, regardless of disabilities and special needs. With regards to those educational laws and responsibilities, I'm going to briefly go over how these will impact my future classroom. With the knowledge of these, I will have better understanding on how to meet the needs of all the students under my supervision. I will be able to be more knowledgeable in what rights I have as a teacher and what rights my students have. I will also be able to demonstrate effective learning tactics with regards to these federal laws and responsibilities. A broad example of this is, when in my future classroom, I can use my knowledge of IDEA 2004, No Child Left Behind Act of 2002, and Section 504 to help students with special needs more adequately. Moving on, I'm going to discuss teacher liability in the classroom. As quoted in our special education book, evaluation, or assessment, is the gateway to special education, but referral charts the course to the evaluation process. In this section, I'm going to be going over pre-referrals, referrals, and assessments, all of which how we come to know which students need the special needs. With pre-referrals, although evaluation may be the gateway to special education, a great deal of activity occurs prior to a student ever taking the first test. Careful scrutiny of our model reveals an intervention strategy known as pre-referral intervention, which occurs prior to initiating a referral for responsible special education services. The purpose of this strategy is to reduce unwarranted referrals while providing individualized assistance to the student without the benefits of a special education. Although not mandated by IDEA, referral interventions have become increasingly common over the past 2 decades. In fact, IDEA 2004 permits the use of federal dollars to support these activities. Many states either require or recommend the use of this tactic with individuals suspected of having a disability. With regards to referrals, a referral is the first step in a long journey toward receiving a special education. As we've just seen, a referral may start as a result of an unsuccessful pre-referral intervention, or it may be the outcome of child find efforts, which are IDEA-mandated screening and identification of individuals suspected of needing special education. It is a written request to evaluate a student to determine whether the child has a disability. Typically, a referral begins with a general educator. It may also be initiated by a school administrator, a related services provider, a concerned parent, or another individual. In most schools, the information that has been gathered in this is then reviewed by a committee, often known as the Child Study Committee, the Special Services Team, or another such name. The composition of this group is professionals varies, but typically includes an administrator, a school psychologist, and experienced teachers. Other personnel may be involved, depending on the nature of the referral. It is the job of this committee to review the available information and decide whether further assessment is warranted. If the team decides to proceed, a written request for permission to evaluate is sent to the child's parents. School authorities must obtain permission from the parent or guardian before proceeding with a formal evaluation. Finally, with regards to assessment, the first step in determining whether a student has a disability and is in need of special education is securing the consent of the child's parent and or guardian for evaluation. As noted previously, this step is mandated by IDEA. Assessment, according to Garguilo and Metcalf, is a generic term that refers to the process of gathering information about a pupil's strengths and needs. Educational assessment can rightly be thought of as an information gathering and decision making process. One of the goals of this assessment process is to obtain a complete profile of the student's abilities and his or her needs. By law, which is IDEA, this requires the use of a multidisciplinary team of professionals, of which one member must be a teacher. In practice, some school districts are fulfilling this mission by establishing inter- and transdisciplinary assessment teams. Successful accomplishment of this task dictates the use of both formal and informal assessment tools. School psychologists, educational diagnosticians, and other professionals responsible for evaluating the student have a wide variety of assessment instruments at their disposal. As we come to the end of my presentation, I want to do a brief discussion over my philosophy on special education. I believe that everybody is entitled to a fair, well-organized education. When I say this, I hope to put the emphasis on the well-organized aspect of it. I think that every student, whether they be disabled, required special needs, or anything else, should have an organized education. Every student learns at a different rate and through different methods along the way. With a well-organized education, students will be able to learn at the pace that best suits them. Finally, in conclusion, I'm going to go over the previous things that I've stated in my presentation. I have described the definition of special education through the book's definition and my own small definition. I have discussed the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act, IDEA. I have discussed the rights of students, parents/and/or families, and teachers. I have briefly discussed the educational laws and responsibilities with regard to the classroom of special education. I have also touched on the impact this knowledge will have in my future classroom. I have talked about the teacher liability in the classroom with regards to pre-referrals, referrals, and assessments. And I have briefly gone over my philosophy on education and special education alike. Thank you for being able to sit through my entire presentation. In front of you I have my references that I used to find the information on it. The first one, and my main source of information, was from our special education book labeled Special Education in Contemporary Society, An Introduction to Exceptionality. Through our first couple of chapters that we've gone over, those are the ones that I mainly used to describe and find out the information that I used. I also used a couple websites, not only through Google Scholar, but through regular Google. The first one that I found was called the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. It was an Elementary and Secondary Education Act article about the No Child Left Behind Act. I have the website right here if you need to click on it. Also, I used the Wikipedia link on the IDEA 2004 Act. This is also just retrieved on this HTTPS website right here with Wikipedia. Again, thank you for your time.